just started watercolors and you really don't like what you're painting? Well, everyone has a starting point, and that's exactly what I am doing here, helping you all to just gain that confidence in painting your first ever paintings. Well, today we're going to paint this. It's a pretty little floral bouquet, I think, and I'm pretty sure that you are going to paint it really better than this. So grab your supplies and let's dive straight into the tutorial. First off, let's collect all the supplies that we need. We need to have a watercolor paper. So I've separated a piece of paper from this one. So this is from a brand called Art Essentials, and what you need to be ensuring is that it's a 100% cotton watercolor paper, and it's got really thin grains, so you can see that it's cold pressed and it doesn't have much texture on the paper. So that's something you need to take care of. You need a watercolor paper, and then you need a brush. The brush I'm using is a round brush, size 5, and it's from the brand Princeton Art. And then I've got a watercolor cake. This is from a brand Artistica. I'll leave all the links in the video so you can refer them back. So it's a pan of 50 shades, and I've got a swatch sheet somewhere. These are the shades that they've got, and it kind of looks a bit different, but usually cakes are that way. So you need to have a swatch sheet beside so that you know what the shades are. So once you have all the supplies, make sure you've got a rag paper or a cloth to wipe your brush and a jar of water to clean your brush. So let's dive into the tutorial then. We're going to do some practice strokes first before we dwell right into the actual painting. So you need to choose the shades that you want to pick up, and what I usually do is I have a shade chart wherein I have swatched all the shades and I would choose the shades I want. So maybe this time I'm going to use some pink and purples maybe. So I'm going to choose these two shades here, like them, and I'm going to choose a green that goes well with it. I'm guessing that this green right here goes really well with this purple. So I'm going to choose these two shades for my flower. So those are, just going to match these shades. So that's this one right here, and probably the third one, this one right there. So I'm going to dip my brush in water, going to wet my cakes so that it gets a bit water and it kind of helps the watercolor to be picked up really easily. Since this palette doesn't have a place to mix the shades, I'm going to use just a plastic sheet to mix my shades here. If you've got another separate palette, that's well and good. I don't have one, so I'm going to use this as a surface to mix my shades. So this is the green right here, and this is my purple right there. Really vibrant and nice shade. So these are the two main shades I'm going to use, and I'm going to use a bit of variation. So for that, I would pick up a different kind of shade, but in the same range. So since this is a 50 palette shade, I've got all the shades already, so I don't need to mix and match. But if you've got a smaller palette, you would be mixing and matching different shades. I'm going to pick a shade which is in similar range. So that's this lavenderish shade here. I'm going to wet them as well. I'll use that as a gradient in my painting. And I'm going to choose another shade from the green, and I think the one besides this one is a bit perfect for that. So I've got two different set of shades, and I also need a brown for my flower center, and I'm going to choose these two browns here. They're going to be these ones. I'm going to wet them as well. So once we have chosen all the shades, the next job is to swatch them and see. So since I've already got a swatch sheet, this is enough. But if you don't have a swatch sheet, the first thing you would do is to take the shades, put them in your palette, and then swatch them to see what the shade looks like. I'm going to do that for all the shades that I have decided I'm going to use today. I'm making sure to clean the brush thoroughly before I pick up another shade, and that really helps in bringing out the actual shade instead of mixing up shades. Alright, so these are the shades I'm going to use and they seem okay to me. So what we are going to do here is to practice the strokes that we are going to use, and in the final painting we are going to go ahead and paint the entire composition all together. So we're going to have small flowers and small leaves. So for the flowers, I'm going to give you an outline here. So just draw a circle, a smaller circle. You can use a coin or some sort of compass to give an outline. And I'm going to have a symmetric circle within that. So this is going to be the center of the flower for me, and this is where my petals are going to be. So when you start practicing first, you might not get the flower in a symmetric fashion, but that's okay. This is why we start practicing with a pencil outline, so you know what you're doing. I'll pick up my lightest shade, which is this lavender here. I'm putting it here and then mixing it a bit of water. Now I've got quite a lot of paint on my brush, which I don't want to. If I use all the water, it's going to have a bubble of water here. So what I'm doing is to wipe off the excess of water and then just pick up a little bit of paint. I'm going to go around in U-shaped strokes. All right. This really simple strokes. Just go U and fill up the rest of the space. As you reach the last petal, you already realize that the shades are becoming lighter because you don't have much pigment by the time you reach the last one. So you can refill if you want. If not, just go ahead this way. Okay, so now we've got the base layer and this is still wet. It hasn't dried. So I'm going to pick up my darker shade, mix it with the lighter shade, add a little bit of water and go around at the edges. I'm doing it randomly, all right? I'm not doing it the same way for every petal. Just do it randomly and then let it settle on its own. In the meantime, what we will do is we'll practice how to draw the leaves, okay? So for the leaves, I'm going to pick up my lighter shade. This is my lighter shade and it's a bit too bright a green for me. What I'm going to do is mix a little bit of the lavender that we have used. All right, and I'm going to draw a thin line. So what you need to do is, the brush has a thick bristle, isn't it? So what you need to do is to hold it really lightly and draw thin lines. All right, so you can practice the lines somewhere else as well. So if you hold it away from the paper, it's going to be really thin lines. If you hold it closer and press harder, it's going to be thicker lines. So just practice how much pressure you're going to use with the brush. All right, so now that we've covered how to draw the strokes, I'm going to draw another branch here, a really thin one, okay? And what I like to do is to break the branches in between, so it kind of gives a different realistic feel. Okay, so I've got enough branches and now I'd like to cover the leaves. For the leaves, it's just again simple shape. So just go ahead and then come back and you get a tapered leaf. That's what I'm going to do here. Just practice these. You don't need to be mindful of anything at all. Looks really nice and this is perfect. So this is all what we need to practice before we dive into the actual painting. And the next one would be to have your center of the flower. So I'm using a lighter brown and I'm going in with a circle here. And I'm going to just leave it like that. Oops. See, I got a puddle of water there, so that wasn't something that I should have done. I'm going to take back all the water and let it dry over there. Now we've got a wet on wet surface and that's perfect for us to drop in some darker shades of brown, and this is what is the final painting. Okay, so once you practice all of these, we can move on to the actual painting that we're going to do. I hope you've done all the practice strokes that we just discussed earlier. We can now dive into the actual composition. Before you do any composition, I would highly recommend you to have a visual understanding of where you're going to paint each element. So I'm going to draw small circles to show that this is where my flowers are going to be. So probably this is going to be one, another one here. This is a really simple painting, so I'm not overlapping any of the flowers. I'm going to have all the flowers separated from each other. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. All right, so I think this should be enough. And I'm going to have the branches stem coming this way. Some of them are going to be just leaves. All right, so since this is my frame, what I want to do is to have some sort of a shape to the entire composition. So I'm aiming for an oval shape here. So if you can see, there's some kind of an oval shape, and I'm going to fill all of that with symmetric or whatever. Even if it's unsymmetric, it's okay, but then have a shape for your overall composition. So that kind of helps it to be visually appealing. So now that I've got the outline, I'm going to dive in. So as we already decided, we're going to have two shades. One of them is the lightest one. Sorry, I think I mixed with the green. One of them is the lighter shade. I'm going to go with the lighter shade. So I'm imagining this is going to be the center circle. I should have done that first, I guess. Okay. So we'll start off with the center. I'm going to take the lighter browns, wiping off all the excess of the shades and keeping a really dry brush. I'm going to draw the center of the flowers and fill them with the shades. I'm going to do that for all of the flowers together. I'm going to pick a little bit of the darker brown and then go ahead and add them at the edges. So the center of the flowers are done. I'm going to wash my brush because I'm going to change the colors now. So just by wiping on the paper, I'm making sure there's no brown left off. I'm going to take a little bit of water and then pick up the purple that I want to use. So that's the lighter shade of purple. And as we did earlier, I've got a lot of shade on my brush. So I'm going to just drop a little bit of water on my paper. And then with just enough of water and paint, I'm going in to draw my petals. I'm making sure that I'm sticking to the size of the petals that I already drew, not going too much beyond the border that I already drew for myself. Alright, so I'm halfway through, but I feel that the shades are really less. The pigment has reduced so much, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that shade and then go back in and draw the next set of petals. There are some white gaps in between, and honestly, I think it looks really cool to have some white gaps there, so I'm leaving it as such. And since I did not end the edges really well, I'm going to go ahead and just correct them there. Now the subject is still wet, so I'm going to pop in, pick up a little bit of my darker shade and then drop it here and there at the edges. Not overdoing it because already the pigment that I've used is really bright, so I don't want to make it really bright. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and do the same procedure for the rest of the petals. I am done with the flowers, and next what I would go ahead with is the leaves. So for the leaves, I'm going to pick up the green and going to mix up all of whatever of the purple is left off. I'm going to mix it with the green. The green that I'm picking up is a bit way too bright for me, so this is the green that I've picked up, and it's a bit brighter, so I'm going to neutralize the shade by mixing it up with a little bit of the purple. And I'm taking off all the excess of water and going in with really light strokes to draw the stems. All right, so I'm having a really light hand. I'm going to use the tip of the brush to draw the stems, and when I'm drawing the stems, I'm making sure that I'm not just drawing a really straight line. I'm breaking in between, making it a little bit thicker and thinner. All right, so next, these are the stems from the flowers, and I'm also going to have a little bit of additional stems. This is what I said, when you have a composition, it has to have some sort of a natural shape. So I have decided I'm going to have an oval shape. So in order to reach that oval shape, I'm going to fill up a little bit more of stems. There, one maybe here. Maybe I might come up with a little bud or something on these stems. All right, so I've got enough of stems here. And what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and paint the leaves. So for the leaves, I'm going to pick up the very same shade, the green, and mix it up with all the purples, and going in and drawing really small U strokes. So when I'm drawing the leaves, I'm making sure to drop that excess of paint at the tapering edge, so when it dries off, the shade sinks in there and you've got more pigments at this location and less pigment there, so it kind of creates a natural gradient on its own. I'm going in and mixing in more of the greens because I feel that the greens are getting lighter, so I take up more shades of green and I'm going back and forth and doing the leaves again. Alright, so I think we're almost done here, and now I feel like there are a few more gaps here which I could fill. So for that, what I'll do is I'm going to use the same brush, but I'm going to pick up a different shade. So I've got my shade chart here, and I think that this shade right over here is going to be the perfect shade that I'm looking for, and that is this one right there. So this is outside of this practice work that we did, but you know, as I see the composition here, I feel like there is something really missing. So that's why I'm going to mix the shade here on my palette, and I'm going to go in with filler flowers. So a filler flower is what you would use to fill up the space. So in my composition, I feel like there's a lot of gap here, 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 and here as well. So I need something to fill up that space, and there's a lot of green here as well. So I need a bit of, you know, something to distract and separate the green, for which I'm going to use this yellow, and I'm going to come up with some sort of a filler flower, just going with random dots. Okay, so that's enough there, and I'm putting in some dots again, enough there, and probably some here. All right, so now I feel like it's a bit more balanced. Now for these flowers, we need to add more branches, and I'm going to choose a color that's complementing to the yellow, and I guess it's going to be this green mixed with the same yellow. So I'm picking up the same shade of yellow, and I'm going to pick up the green that I just chose now, mix it up, and I've got a really good shade, the exact shade that I'm looking for. Yeah, that's the green I was looking for. All right, so I'm going to wipe my brush and pick up really less amount of the same green, and I'm going to draw, oops, it's more of yellow than green. Would add a little bit more of the green. Small dots of green to show that, you know, there are twigs in between, and then bring it down. I'm going to do the same for the rest. So we're going to draw certain lines here in between and outside. These are going to be the stem onto which the flowers are attached. And I'm going to go in with a different kind of leaves. So that's going to be a little bit longer leaf. Just make sure that all of these are connected to something. I mean, it shouldn't be floating. So got the stem and I'm adding 2 leaves. Some leaves, stem and 2 leaves. Same here, the stem and leaf. I guess it's okay for me. And the last thing I usually do is to have a separate layer. So when we see this here, so these are all really bright shades, isn't it? So what I usually do is to go in with a really light shade of whatever colors that we've used here. So I'm just going to pick up a really light shade, mixed the same green with a little bit of water, and then adding a bit of stem in the background. So it just looks like there's something added in the background. So I'm just going with random strokes and adding stems and leaves, whatever it looks like. So it just adds a bit of dimension to the painting. Make sure that it's within the overall composition shape that you've defined. So my composition shape is an oval, and I'm going to restrict all of these within that shape. I'm going to pick up the other green, lighten it up a lot, adding more water, and I have lightened it up, and going to add a bit of that as well in the background. Can you see how this is all coming together now when you fill up that space with a lighter shade? Just feel like everything gets connected somehow instead of all of them standing separately. Alright, so now the final part is to connect all of these, and for that what I'm doing is take the same brown shade that I used for the center of the flower. I'm going to draw what I would imagine to be the ground. Alright, and then wash off my brush and then wipe off all of water and just mix it up. Yeah, that's the connecting point. And I think we're done with our painting. So this is something that anyone would paint. And if you want to add that extra detail, what I would ask you to do is to go ahead and add details. So that's a bit more of time, but if you do that, it's going to elevate your painting so much. So what I usually do, the easiest way, is to use the gel pens. So I've got this whatever 20 colors of gel pen. I'm going to choose similar shades. So I've got a purple and I've got a green as well, and I'll go in and draw the outlines. So I'm just checking if the shades are the same shades. Satisfied with the shade, so I'll go ahead and draw the outlines. Going a bit outside, just going very freely and drawing the outlines. It doesn't matter whether you exactly draw around the petals or you're just overdoing it. It doesn't really matter. This is the time when you can also correct the size of the petals, the shape of the petals, if you haven't done it already. Next, I'm going to go in for the green shade, checking if the green is okay. It seems okay. So I'm going in, doing the same for the leaves. So when I'm going in, I'm only focusing on the main subjects. So that's the flower for us and the leaves for us. I'm not going to do that for the filler flowers because that's supposed to be in the background, diffused and merging with the background. So I'm going to bring out the foreground by giving in more details, but no details for the background. They're supposed to be blurred, and they're just for the sake of just being there and filling up the space. The last is the center bit, and I've got a brown. I'm not sure if this brown is, yeah, it looks okay. So I'm going to go in, draw a circle for the brown, and that's it. The only tip I would give is to add details. If you've not got these gel pens, just go ahead, find a fine liner brush. So I've got another brush here, which is a size 0 Winsor & Newton. So any size 0 brush is really thin enough. Go dig in that shade again and then go add outlines to it once everything is dry. So that really elevates your painting. So this is how the final painting looks like, and I hope you really like it. If you like it, please do subscribe to this channel so that it would really motivate me to make more videos like this for you guys. Until we meet for another art session like this, bye bye.